This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you in partnership with ministryleague.com. We would love for more people to discover this show, so please rate and review us on iTunes or your podcast provider. Feel free to share on your social media and subscribe at benandtravis.com for the free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living. Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast, brought to you from Maywood Christian Camp in Hamilton, Alabama. We are super excited to be here again. We have our guest with us. We'll introduce in a moment. We have Travis. How's your week of camp going?
Man, it's a week of camp, so I'm sweaty, gross, and loving every last second of it. Squeezing all the life out of it I can get with my best buds in the whole world.
And Will, how's it going for you?
It's going great. I'm just wondering if we can get free merchandise for you saying that this is sponsored by Maywood.
Ooh, great idea. So, Pam, how are you doing? How's camp going for you?
Oh, it's just phenomenal. Definitely shot in the arm after being gone for 2 years, or a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years since we've been here. So, always great to be at this place.
We're going to let Will kind of introduce a little bit of our topic today, a little bit of a different topic for us.
Yeah, so Helping Healing Humor. Going to go with a episode of help here, hopefully that I think will be good. Over the past couple of years being in youth ministry, as y'all know, I've had a lot of young women come up to me and go, hey, you and Lindsay got married at 20, and, y'all were young, and 20 is a year and a half, 2 years from now. So what am I going to do? Or I've had some of our college students come back going, I can't find anybody, and life's just not going good for me or anything like that. Or we've even had some friends that were young adults who are going, hey, everybody at church tries to keep setting me up with somebody. And so there's been a lot of conversations that I've had with a lot of our young people and young adults that are just struggling with the dating scene, the marriage scene, and all that. And until recently, I thought my parents were the only ones that got married later in life because they got married when they were 38. And I'm really not going to send a lot of people to my parents to talk about dating and marriage. So,
and they're probably not going to come on the podcast to be interviewed by you.
Yeah. And so through, our connections, Pam has a pretty good experience here and a lot of wisdom. And so we just want to kind of kick that over and kind of mull it over and talk about some things that maybe can help our young people.
Give us a little of your experience in this realm.
Yeah. Well, I went to school at Freed Hardeman, which is the
Find a Husband University.
Thank you, in stereo. And yes, I've heard it in stereo a lot. I mean, you go there to get an MRS degree.
That's right.
And then when you get through and you don't have one, it's like, okay, now what? Here I was with all of those in one spot, and I got out without one. What was that about?
Just for our slow listeners, MRS, the Minister's Degree. I mean, I've told that to kids too. MRS, they're like, what does MRS stand for? Anyway,
which is such a true statement at Freed Hardeman, because I know
you're looking for a Mrs.
Do not swing on the swing twice.
3 times.
3 times.
Because I know when Lindsay and I were dating, it was every weekend. When she came back to the dorm, did you get engaged? Did you get engaged? When are you getting married?
Are you going to have a candle lighting?
Yes.
How many did I attend? A bunch.
So it's a very true statement.
Yeah, and when you get out, and then there's that, and then I was in a singles group in Memphis, and we just had a great time together, but nothing came there. Then I went to Freed Hardeman to work, still crickets, and came back home, still crickets. So I did not get married until I was 37. And when you look back and you look how it all landed, it's God's perfect timing. Mm-hmm. However, God's perfect timing does not always include a mate. And I had about gotten to the point of like, whatever, and I'm going to be busy doing what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to look anymore. And because I started dating guys that had children. And if y'all know me, I love children. And so I would love the kids and get real tight with them. And then it's like, yeah, but I don't like you. You know, I mean, you know, and so then that was hard. So it was all, you know, a very difficult thing. But, you know, 37 is a long road from 22 to 37 of people saying, when are you going to get married? And I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. I mean, do you know? And of course, my favorite line was when one girl said, don't you want a husband? Like that. And a friend of mine was single, and she was like, no, I'd rather find a single guy, you know? And I was like, thank you. I mean, I thought that is really good. And so, you know, that was a really good comeback. I was like, thank you very much. And I wasn't always that witty, but sometimes very sensitive about it. And then sometimes it was just, I'm good. I mean, I'm really good. And it's really hard for people to accept that you're okay. And they think that the only perfect way to live is if you are married. And there's people that are like, then your single people feel a little less valuable and not as important, because obviously you cannot be happy because you've got to have a mate, because then you're complete. And it's like, well, not necessarily, because, you know, not at all. I mean, you know, you got to have God to, I mean, you know, that's where your focus should be. And it's really hard for our single people. And it was for me too, because there were times that are hard, and it just is. Christmas, everyone else is doing all their family stuff, and you're at home going, all right. And I got involved with my niece, and, you know, you do that thing, but Christmas morning, okay, I'll go to my mama's, you know, and that's fine. My parents were they always still looked out after their baby girl. But, you know, there's just the family moments where, you know, you think about now that I am married, there's these family moments with us. And then the funny thing, I would go home on the weekends from work, leave on Friday night. The only place that anyone would be looking for me was on Sunday mornings. Well, then it's like, well, Pam's always out gallivanting, going somewhere, because I didn't have any, you know, if I had friends in different places, and I could be gone somewhere, you know? Yeah. And so they really were like, Pam's probably somewhere, you know? And I had to tell the secretary at school on Monday, I was like, if I don't show up, come check my house, you know, because I could go home on Friday and really not see anyone till Monday morning. And there were some weekends that was nice, you know, and to this day I would covet that, you know. I mean, it's like, oh, how nice that would be, right then. But, you know, I think, you know, that's a hard thing of like, who would check on me? For a long time, I wanted to be a youth minister. Well, back in those days, there were no female ones unless I moved to Nashville. It was big cities. Now, I mean, it's moved on around. I'm so jealous, because I would have been free department. I've been in it, you know. But I had those opportunities, and I remember being so offended that people were like, well, you know, we'll let Pam do it because she's single and she's not busy. And I thought, you have no idea how busy I am. I mean, you know, however, I was nowhere near as committed. I mean, you know, my time is no longer mine now. And so I could choose then what I wanted to do. And when I got married and had children, I don't really get to choose a lot of my time. And so there is that difference. So if you're single out there and people say that, yes, you're busy. However, you get to choose what you do. But
I encourage, you know, kids all the time that aren't married, that are, you know, just gotten through with college, they're not really in that committed relationship, or, you know, people who are married and don't have kids yet, like, and do that stuff while you can right now, because there is a lot of things that you don't necessarily get to do after the fact. And so Travis says it a lot, you know, be where your feet are. And I'm sure that there's some things like that you could, you know, speak to for people, like, you know, wherever it is, you know, Paul talked about in whatever situation I am, there with to be content. That's tough though, right? That was kind of I'm sure looking back, easier to go, oh, I could have done this, that, or the other than maybe while you were right in the mix of it.
Yeah. One of the things, I think it's very important. I guess I was at the church where I attended. They just knew I would say yes to things, and so I did. I mean, I was like, okay.
Hey, we know that feeling, right?
Know the feeling.
But I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it, and yeah, I'll go. And and that was right down my alley, of like, you need a chaperone, okay, I'm in. And do you need do you want to go on a mission trip? Yeah, I'm in. So I got to go on mission trips. I got to, of course, come to camp every year. Got involved with Horizons. Then youth events galore, because sometimes parents are ready for a break, and so they'll let the single girl go in who doesn't have kids all the time, and then the kids would talk to me. So I had a lot of relationships with those girls because I wasn't an adult as such, and so it was. I had to get busy with his work. I had to. This is what, and I've told some girls before who are like, "What are you? How do you do this?" And I said, "You've got to find your gift. What is it that you're good at? What is it that you feel good about? And then that's where you get in." And I said, "You get in it and do what God wants you to do. He's given you a talent. He's given you that gift, and you don't have to be married to do it." And for some people, that gift, Suzanne Blankenship, before she got married, she lived, can't remember where she lived, but she got real attached to some of the little older widow ladies. And she would spend time with them, and they would go eat out. And she got real attached to some, and she still talks about them. And they would call her and check on her. And even after she got married, it did, but that was, and she's so good at that still to this day, even though she has a family. That was not a single thing to do. That's her gift. And I think it's so important if we find our gift and we get in it and we serve God and we do what we can, because in the church there's places for everyone and we all fit, but we got to get in there. We can't sit back and go, well, I'm not valuable because I'm single.
I'm sure the temptation is sometimes to withdraw.
Oh, it is.
I've exhausted all the avenues that could lead me down that path. So I just want to withdraw to myself. Now I'm an extrovert, and that would be like a death sentence to me. But, I imagine the temptation is to be away from people because you don't want to get asked the questions, and you don't want to get, And so I'm a practical person. I know you've covered some things don't say to people, and you may have a few more of those.
Okay.
But what were some things people did do that comforted you and encouraged you and lifted you up to continue down the path? Because, you mentioned the perfect thing, and we have a blaring example of Scripture. Whatever Paul's situation was, we know, there was something there where he made the statement, I'm able to commit myself to the Lord. And that's certainly not an easy bar to reach for any of us, but, it isn't. That isn't a connection to perfection. It's not a perfect situation for everyone. So what are some, things that people did to encourage you?
Oh, wow. I was thinking this week, after y'all told me, Matt and Beth Hester did not care that I was single. Didn't matter to them. There are people that would not go out to eat with me because I was single. You got to have an even number. It's got to be an even number dinner party. And
those are our OCD folks.
I ate dinner with 5 people last night.
Well, I'm an even, and I'm an even Stephen. I'm an even Stephen, not an odd Todd. But I will have to say, a lot of times after church, they would say, "You want to go eat?" And I was like, "Okay." And so there sat Matt and Beth on that side, and I'd sit on this side, and it felt it was fine. Yeah. Yes, Beth and I were friends, but Matt didn't care either. I do realize that, that's a boundary that has to, be that
Has to be
line
agreed
cannot.
upon.
Yeah,
It
so-
does.
yeah.
I mean, it does. And but however, for that single person, a lot of
Means
times,
a lot.
they people will not wouldn't invite a single person over to the house. I had some great friends that one, I would tutor their child for a good meal, and I got spaghetti, and every week she made the best spaghetti, and it was like, what can I pay you for tutoring my child? I said, spaghetti. I lived in Memphis at the time, food, and it was the best spaghetti ever. Just thinking about, and I'm going to say this, Doug McWilliams prayed. Y'all, if people don't realize how much in prayer is prayed for families, prayed for our children, pray for the widows.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I heard, he was the first person I ever heard that's prayed for the single people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, thank you. I mean, I had just, yes, I wanted to pray for all those people too, but then he named me.
Yeah.
He named my situation. And I remember that. And I remember just going, and it's like you don't know. And then when you hear it, you're like, oh, that's what I wanted to hear, And
That's such a simple thing.
It is.
To be Jesus to somebody,
Right.
You talked about
That's a picture we see.
Elroy, is that the name? God
he
who
hears
sees,
me, he
or
sees me,
hears-
and your last podcast you mentioned we don't have a lot of sermons on women, and I'm so tempted on my time on Thursday night to do Hagar. I did a lesson on Hagar this past weekend.
Bring it.
He sees me.
But he sees me, he hears me.
That's a big thing to know that I'm seen, I'm understood, I'm heard. That's pretty cool, because I don't know that I've thought about that either. So I appreciate you bringing that point up.
Well, and,
for
then
sure.
and until it was said.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I sit and I don't. It's hard to do a sermon for single people. You don't have that many in there. I mean,
Right.
unless you turn it to
very
where how
specific,
can we
yeah.
help or
That's
serve
one
each
thing we
other.
at some point have all experienced. So I mean, it's
But then you're looking at how many times I had to sit through a marriage or a family, or how are we? How are you going to be a better mate? I made a 100 in marriage in the family class with Billy Smith.
I have a certificate.
Friendship mate, or are we talking about?
I have a certificate.
Which probably, I don't know, it brings up my mind is when we talk about singles, in the church, it revolves around Mother's Day. Let's pray for the women that aren't yet mothers, possibly, or married. Valentine's Day, which I'm assuming are probably not enjoyable holidays.
Singles Awareness Day.
Right. Yeah.
Several times I wore
it's-
black. I mean, just it was more of a statement of funny. I'm just wearing black, But then to encourage those that are single, I watched a good old Hallmark movie. But I wish that I had just
They all end the
celebrated
same way.
all the people that
All
were
are the same.
all the people I loved, instead of thinking I had to find someone.
Yeah.
So I watched that and I went, I wish I had done that instead of, wallowing in that. If I had, and that girl did that, she still celebrated all the people that she loved. And I was like, why didn't I think about that?
yeah.
It's still about love. It's not about, Cupid. That,
Draw back your
whatever.
bow.
But I just wish I had thought of that. But anyway, I did not. So y'all do better than me. But it's just.
I think it's a lesson in that there are always struggles and things that we don't always see, and if we're not really looking for it,
To be sensitive to
yeah,
those.
like I there's times I don't think about those things, and we've had podcasts about different things, similarly, that we just might miss small niches of our community of the church. And so be aware. Titus 3:14 has become one of my favorite passages. Our people must learn to engage in good deeds to meet pressing needs so that we will not be unfruitful. And if we don't learn to meet those pressing needs, if we don't know what people's needs are, we can't meet their needs.
And you got to have a relationship with
relationship.
people. If you're like, well, they're single, or I can't, and then single people can't get off in their shell.
That's what I was going to say. I'm so thick-headed You know, my wife, if she's not listening, but if she was, she'd be like, amen to that. You know, but that, if anything, this podcast has helped me be more sensitive and think of things. And like I said, I have to have things made practical. Like, don't do this, do this. And so I appreciate that.
Well, and that's part of what, you know, we understand that. You see that probably especially at school, is so many times that the kids that, you know, are problematic maybe in the school, if that's the right way to put it, you know, the ones that do have a lot of the issues with behavior and whatever else, a lot of times it's just because somebody's not seeing the needs that they have. And so much is just recognized. Not that you were ever problematic, Pam. You were always amazing. And honestly, you don't realize the kind of impact, you know, you don't realize the kind of impact you had on us. And I think that's the huge thing to remember too, is you may be thinking in those days, you know, if we rewinded and we were sitting in those days today, I can only imagine, you know, some of those things you've been talking about. But I never knew that. Like, I never knew you were struggling like that. All I saw was, man, this girl has some awesome faith. She comes down here and encourages us. She's pushing us. And you may have been walking away discouraged or whatever else in some way. We didn't know it, but we were being encouraged by you. Does that make sense? So it's like, you know, you don't know who you're encouraging, even maybe in your struggles and in your, you know, moment of weakness. You still may be encouraging other people, because you sure did for us. So,
well, and I think, you know, you just, through those things of being involved, you know, if I had gone off, you know, to just go to my house and close the door and not be involved at church or come to camp, you know, you got to, no matter where you are, whether you're married or you're single, you got to get in there, because that's where our encouragement is. And, you know, the three strands, you gotta get with your brothers and sisters, and that's who holds you up. I mean, and whether you're married to a brother in Christ or you worship, you know, it's doesn't matter if you're married or not. You need strength from each other. And, you know, for guys, if you don't feel comfortable, you know, with a single girl, send your wife, you know, hey, go ask her. Let's, you know, make sure. Yeah. One of the things I guess I'm super sensitive about is I notice who is sitting by themselves at church. And I notice it quickly. Yeah. And I think that's because that was a terrifying thing. I wouldn't say terrifying. However, it can keep you from walking into a building. Who am I going to sit with? Where am I going to sit? You know, where am I going to sit? Where am I going to sit? You know, so I really do look around for that, because I remember that. And I think, you know, sometimes we're like, well, we'll let them, you know, they must be okay.
Right.
Because they're sitting by themselves, they must be okay. Well, they're not going to say, sit with me. You know, I mean, they're not going to do that, or wear a sign.
Hold up a sign that says, I
please
need
sit
someone
with me.
to sit with me.
Myself, please.
Well, that's one of the things I love about, like, our eldership. The moment somebody starts down the aisle, they all come to them. And so not necessarily sitting with them but you know, that walk down the aisle to sit on the front pew all by yourself is sometimes tough too.
Yeah.
And so they flood them, and it's gotten to where it's not just them, but a lot of our if it's a lady, we'll have 2 or 3 ladies come down there and sit with them. And I think that's what we need, not just when they come to the front pew, but what you're talking about, paying attention that, hey, those people came in by themselves. I try to be aware of, like, a mom. She may be a single mother, or she may just happen to that Sunday be a single mother, and she's trying to wrangle the kids and get them out to the car. I've tried to always be aware of that. Grab a kid and go, hey, I'll help you get to the car.
I cannot imagine how hard to be a single mom. I know how hard it is by myself, when I was by myself, but it was just me. I mean, if I went just cooking alone, I didn't have to. But to get someone else taken care of, and if anyone needs us, they most certainly do. A single parent of any kind, male, female, it can go either way.
Shout out to you, Doris Gracie.
That's right.
Exactly.
The name Satan in Hebrew is the accuser. And Satan tells us all kinds of lies. And he really doesn't have to tell them. Sometimes we tell ourselves lies. And it's really easy for us to buy into those things. Were there things that like that, maybe you told yourself that weren't healthy thoughts that, you said you've been involved, but I'm just thinking of somebody out there who's listening who might be struggling with that, and they're a Christian, but like all of us, there are things that we kind of tell ourselves that isn't healthy. That whether it's Satan or not, we accuse ourselves wherever we are in our journey. But as a former single person, were there those things that maybe you could encourage the person who's listening today, like, hey, that's a lie. It's not true,
Yeah. And I think just a study I've had recently, I wish that I had during that time. I think what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me, and I'm not worthy, I think would probably be the biggest lie. And when I've been studying with a ladies class, Debbie Doopey's book about through the 23rd Psalm, breaking it apart. And it has been a very powerful study for me, but to realize how valuable we are to the higher power, the hand, holding our hand and having us right here, and that brings that worthiness, the value, and when you are when you're single so long and you've been to everybody's wedding, and and you're it's like, what in the world, and then where are they? And
those things can be marathons, they just can be for all day long. You're putting on a good face, right? I didn't get married till I was 27, so you still beat me by a decade, but I remember going, I got to be there for those people. I want to be there for those people, and afterwards you go back and it's really easy because you're tired. We talk about halt all the time, you can get in that headspace. You're tired, hungry, whatever.
You're lonely, tired,
and
bored,
and you can
stressed.
tell yourself a bunch of stuff, and you may not even need Satan to tell you that lie, but it's easy to look in that mirror.
Yeah, and when you are in that place, then you can very easily be disconnected from God at times, and then you end up going down a path you don't need to be going down, and or marrying someone you don't need to marry, and not praying about that. That's an experience. I know. I talked to you.
Yeah, we're friends.
But I went. I was going to marry this guy, and I wasn't praying about it, and I wasn't really, because you know why? I didn't want to hear him.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hear him.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to get married. This was the reason I thought I knew. Thankfully, there were people praying. And they kind of came to me after it fell apart and said, I was praying about that. And I was like, that's why this fell apart. Thank you. I was like, wish that had been me doing that. And, because there were times what I wanted got in the way of what God wanted. And so, I thank God that, He did have a plan.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.